Hey, it's Nicole from outerinnerspace, and this video is for Gemini Energy and ESP, so how extrasensory perception can manifest for Gemini Energy. And you can watch this for any Gemini placements you have, for third house energy, or wherever Gemini is in your natal chart. Because we're made up of all the zodiac signs in our natal chart, there is an expression of Gemini somewhere in your chart. And the idea of this series is to paint a picture of how all those areas of life and all those zodiac expressions can manifest as ESP, so that you have a catalogue that you can refer to of how ESP might manifest for you, because it's going to be very multi-layered and very multi-dimensional, and it's not just going to be one defined expression, it's going to be many. And the point of this series is just to help ground the idea of ESP, because a lot of people might have the perception that it's only for a gifted few or mystics, but the fact is that everybody experiences ESP in one way or another. But quite often when we're young, or just in general life really, that we have these perceptions and these visions or these thought downloads, or these knowings that we can't explain how we got them or what generated them. We can doubt them so easily because there's no education on this. There's in fact recrimination about this, and all that is stored in our body, and so it feels unsafe to be able to talk about it or even lean into it personally. So I'm hoping that this series helps kind of demystify it and make it a bit more normal, because I feel like a lot of us are growing in our abilities to lean into these energies, and I just feel like it needs to be talked about. So for Gemini energy and the way ESP manifests, it has a lot to do with that mercurial nature of direct messages and language, communication, the written word, and this knowing, this ability to transmit and receive data. So for third house energy, it also has to do with our immediate environment, so our neighborhood and the places that we frequent quite often, and the people that we interact with on that daily basis. And it also has to do with the first experience we have with thoughts and logic and interpreting messages. And so when you think about third house energy being the first sign in the zodiac where we're talking about the mercurial nature of language and thinking and mental constructs, what's really important to first create this foundation of knowing in this kind of field is that when we're really little and we don't know how to process certain events or certain reactions or certain stimuli in our environment, we store that energy in our body for later. And I've created these notes called ESP notes, and I'll link that below. But the first part, body as an antenna, is worth looking at, and it's free to read for everyone, about how these really early experiences in our childhood, if we're ever shut down in terms of getting our extrasensory perceptions validated, or if we're told like not to use our imagination, or anything that kind of normalizes or tries to normalize our experience, those faculties get shut down. And that's how third house, ninth house energy works, is that when we are young and we have these very natural perceptions of the world, like very natural ways of seeing, and we could even have like the broadest perception of colors and all these different nuances of how we see things. But then when we are imprinted with facts and other people's logic, it gets overlaid on those perceptions, it covers them up, and then we start to build our mental structures on this information that isn't in true resonance, but we're too young to know that at the time. And then eventually, with practice, these structures, they become mental limits to us, and that's when we are traveling around the zodiac to the ninth house, Sag energy, where we challenge those beliefs, we challenge those repetitive thoughts or those limiting associations with perception. We educate ourselves, and then we find freedom from that, and then in that we experience so much more. So for Gemini energy, it really is worth having a look at these repetitive patterns in our thinking and in our beliefs that are going to be regular, like they're going to be things that happen daily, maybe even multiple times a day. When you think of Gemini energy, it's like little bits reiterated, and then they become established and part of who we become, because they're constantly in our mind and we carry that in our field. And I talk more about that in the Aries ESP video, which you might want to watch because it talks about the body as well. So how this could manifest for Gemini is like if you're driving to work and you are on this particular street section and you notice that in that part of the road or seeing that particular house, it triggers this memory from childhood or from past experience that still haunts you in some way. That's the way ESP kind of communicates with you that there's something in your field that needs your attention. And then you see how that is constantly happening. And then that's something that you're invited to take on board, look into, make conscious, see what the root is, clear that energy. So then you can clear the filter, then your field of awareness starts to expand. This is also the same for if you go for walks around your neighborhood and there's certain parts of the road that really makes you think about this one person or this one experience, or it could be a tree that you used to have in your garden when you were young and it's kind of inviting you. And it's not always about like a negative experience. It could be a tree that you used to sit under when you were young and communicate with like the ethereal elements in your garden, like this kind of thing. And that at that time in your life, you were more connected to this part of you. And it's like an invitation for you to come back to that sense perception where your imaginative faculties were really switched on before they got shut down by social conditioning and pressure from, authority figures. Another way this can manifest with that mercurial nature is overhearing conversations from people. These are called clairaudience, and they're literally messages direct from the universe for you. It could be something you overhear, it could be a song, it could be an actual conversation you're in where someone answers the question. But it also could be things in your immediate environment, like it could be a sign of a bus stop or the name of a business that you pass or like a tagline. These very subtle ways that language or data is being communicated to you in your immediate field that strikes a chord. This is about really tuning into those subtle perceptions that it's really going to be indirect, but it does require your attention and your attunement to these environmental factors that can really indicate to you a whole nother world of sensory input that is there always to help you and to help you grow. It's for your journey. And one way you'll know if these are messages for you, Gemini, is to feel how you're feeling in your shoulders, because Gemini energy is connected to the shoulders. And so if you feel sort of activated there, then really hone in on that, because there's a connection there that can help you with the weight that you carry on your shoulders. It's there to help you relieve that stored tension. And connected to that and connected to the opening of that part of your body and any other areas of the body that do feel heavy and blocked is to practice brainwave variability. So with Mercury energy, it's kind of in the lines of high beta or mid beta, where it's constantly processing, thinking about strategies, getting in new information, stimuli, this kind of thing. And those brainwaves are very frenetic and fast. And so when we're operating in that kind of frequency, it prevents, like, we're using our neocortex, the frontal lobe, and that has a lot to do with our conscious mind and logic and, these kinds of mental faculties. But everyone has naturally through the day we go through all the different levels of brainwaves, but for Gemini energy, making a conscious effort to temper the brainwaves to alpha or even low beta, where we're in the flow state and we are more receptive to these subtle energies. So doing things like breath work for like 5 concentrated minutes, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4, that can really help temper those fast waves. And it's when we have those breaks in the mental faculties that we are allowing these very subtle energies to come through. Another really simple thing to do to lower brainwaves is to spend a moment in nature scanning the environment for colour. That activates a different part of the brain, and it's when we take those moments of attunement that we aren't analyzing, we're not in those high beta waves, we're in those alpha waves where we're connected to the earth and we are returning to more of an equalized mental state. And those very small moments but very regular moments, like that Gemini energy of attunement, it does so much for your brain health and just your ability to process information in a very sort of balanced and grounded way. You can read more on brainwave variability in my periods, brainwaves and astrology notes, and I'll link that below, and that's also free to access as well, that part. So another thing for Gemini energy that you can do is consider how the third house, how it is opposite to the ninth house of Sag. So when you are in your immediate environment, your community or your regular patterns, the same cafes all the time, the same people at work or the same routes to work, these kinds of things, in order to break that pattern and allow for new energy to come through, for new stimuli to come through, is doing that ninth house explorative voyage where you go somewhere that really disrupts those standard patterns of your day-to-day processing, going on a short weekend away, even if it's just a long drive somewhere that you wouldn't normally go. That kind of disrupts the neocortex structured frequency of how you generally operate, or how Gemini energy generally operates, and allows for that new flood of stimuli from the new environment to come through. And in that space, in that disruption of the pattern, then all these insights can come into your awareness, and it breathes like a breath of fresh air into how you were going through things, and can make what was really unconscious but trying to get through because you're in this whole different energy field. On that, it's also worth noting as well, like the people that you do encounter very often, and making regular check-ins throughout the day of how your energy responds to that. So you might go to a certain community group or, a certain shopping center, for example, and you feel your energy drop in those moments. Well, that is extrasensory perception being attuned to that kind of shift in your energetic field. And so when we tune into those subtle details, those body responses, and again, there's more on that in the body as an antenna notes, that's when you can see, the idea is that you take that data, that subtle data, on board and make the shifts so that you can enhance your life. Like the whole idea of extrasensory perception is that you're given these gifts, these very, very natural gifts, in order to utilize them for your own benefit and for understanding your journey and to become a more optimized human being, using all the gifts that you have been imbued with. And this is something I think I said in the Aries video, is that these perceptions, they're just for you. So when we have these very subtle impressions and experiences, they're designed specifically for our vibration. And when we are trying to communicate these experiences, first of all, changing it into language alters the frequency, so it reduces the impact in a sense. But then we need to cross over into someone else's energy field who is naturally on a different vibration or a different frequency. And then past their field is like their whole sense of perception and all their belief systems that then it needs to penetrate through too. So when we try to validate these experiences, we are often met with brick walls, and those are energetic barriers essentially. And when we don't get that validation or any kind of like proper feedback that, wow, this is significant, then we practice not trusting it, and we then just keep burying it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that these perceptions are just for you, and they're just to enhance you and help you. So again, I would suggest to have a look at some of the other videos in this series, because it's like puzzle pieces to put together, and the whole series was designed in mind that it's not just one energy in which ESP manifests, it's a broad range, and it's even beyond that. So the idea is that this plants a seed, and then you can kind of go into it and explore it a bit. And I would love to hear how it works for you. I'm genuinely interested. Also, I did a chart ruler series for each of the signs, and I realized in hindsight that you could watch that for the planet energy in general. and I will link that at the end of this video. And I hope you found some value in this, and I wish you well.